Okay, so get ready, because this time we are diving deep, really deep, into the world of Cyclops.
Huh.
Scott Summers. Cyclops.
You know, I've always found him fascinating.
Oh, for sure.
Like, on the surface, you've got the iconic visor, the incredible power, but underneath, there's a lot going on there emotionally.
Layers.
Layers and layers. So we're going deep with this one. And luckily, we've got the Marvel Fandom Wiki on our side.
Always a good sign.
And let me tell you, their entry on Cyclops, ridiculously detailed.
Makes sense, though, right? I mean, this is a character with decades of backstory. Writers have really gone to town with him. Psychology, relationships, leadership. There's a lot to unpack.
Let's start with the whole, shooting lasers from his eyes thing.
Right, where do you even begin with that?
The wiki describes it as, and I quote, a frickin' nuke.
Yeah, that track. Powerful enough to punch holes through mountains.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, talk about a gift and a curse, right?
Totally. And for Cyclops, it really leans into the curse territory. Like, he embodies this paradox of having all this immense power, but also this struggle for control that's as much psychological as it is physical.
And the wiki talks about this buildup of surplus energy that forces him to fire off those optic blasts regularly. It's almost like he can't not use his powers.
It's true. It's more than needing to vent, though.
Okay, so what is it then?
Well, you've got someone like Emma Frost.
Powerful telepath.
Yeah. Exactly. And in the comics, she makes this fascinating point. She theorizes that Scott's his inability to fully control those optic blasts, it's all tied back to his childhood trauma.
See, this is what gets me. Even Professor X, with all his telepathic abilities, he didn't fully grasp that connection.
It's dank, man.
It's deep. And Scott's childhood. Understatement of the century to call it rough. Losing his parents so young, being separated from his brother, ending up in that horrible orphanage run by Mr. Sinister.
Talk about messed up.
Seriously.
Like, his whole world just shattered before he even hit puberty. And what Emma's getting at, I think, is that he subconsciously blocked his powers as a way to cope. Like a defense mechanism against all that chaos.
So he's overcompensating, right?
Yeah.
Trying to exert control over this one thing, this immense power, to make up for a childhood where he had none.
Exactly. And that need for control. It bleeds into everything. His personality, his relationships, especially his family life. Because, and let's be honest, the Summers family drama, it's a whole other level of complicated.
Oh, tell me about it. Lost parents, space pirates, clones. Like, how much can one family take?
And it really highlights the sheer amount of upheaval, the manipulation even, that has defined Scott Summers' life. I mean, you mentioned the whole space pirate thing.
Right.
That's his dad. Corsair, the leader of the Starjammers.
Insane.
Imagine growing up thinking your parents are dead, only to find out your dad's out there, gallivanting across the galaxy.
Wow.
And it's not like it stops there, right? I mean, we're just getting started with the family drama.
Right, because then there's Madeline Pryor.
Oh yeah, we gotta talk about Matt.
Who, and this is wild, is basically a clone of Jean Grey. And this is all happening before Jean's whole Phoenix saga.
It's a lot, even for comics.
It's a lot for anyone, and it turns out Mr. Sinister, that creepy geneticist dude, he created Madeline specifically to mess with Scott.
Of course he did. What else is new?
And to top it all off, she gives birth to Cable, time-traveling son, in case you forgot.
Right, it's like when it rains, it pours. And on that note, we haven't even touched on his brothers.
Oh, right. Havoc, Vulcan, Adam X.
Each one brings their own baggage to the whole Summers family dynamic.
Seriously, it's like, how does he even function with all that going on? All that loss, manipulation.
Right.
It makes sense, though, why he's so serious all the time.
Guarded, you mean?
Yeah, guarded. Like he's built these walls around himself,
Totally. It's like a defense mechanism. But here's the thing, and this is what I find really interesting. For a guy who shoots lasers and wears a visor, Cyclops has a surprisingly complex love life.
Okay, yeah. For a stoic dude with crazy powers, he's had his fair share of romance.
Right. And it's not just the quantity, it's the quality.
Oh, I see what you're saying. It's not just about the number of relationships, it's the type of women he's drawn to.
There you go. Jean Grey, obviously. Madeline. Before the whole clone situation imploded. Even Emma Frost, who's her own brand of complicated.
And what do they all have in common?
They're all powerful telepaths.
Whoa. Okay, yeah, that's not a coincidence.
Right. This isn't just Cyclops having a type. It speaks to something deeper, I think. Like, he needs a connection that goes beyond words, connection that can cut through all the noise, all his baggage, and just understand him.
Yeah.
And telepathy, it offers that possibility.
Sure. But it's got to come with some serious risks too, right?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, imagine if someone could just read your thoughts.
Yeah.
All your insecurities, your doubts, everything.
Intense. Vulnerable doesn't even begin to cover it.
And we've seen how badly that can go. Mastermind using his powers to manipulate Jean into the Dark Phoenix.
Right.
Emma having a psychic affair with Scott while they were both with other people.
Ooh. Yeah, telepathy can open you up to a whole world of hurt.
Totally a double-edged sword. He craves that deep connection, but it terrifies him at the same time. And the wiki even mentions how he develops some mental resistance, probably from all those telepaths in his life.
Makes sense, like a defense mechanism. But speaking of defenses, we gotta talk about Cyclops as a father.
Oh, for sure. A whole other side of
Because it feeds directly into his dynamic with Cable. You know, the whole being ripped through time to raise his son in a dystopian future thing.
Classic Scott. Always got to be dramatic, that one. But that whole experience, even more than fatherhood itself, shows you something crucial about him.
What's that?
He is fiercely protective of the people he cares about. Like, he'll risk everything, even his own life, to safeguard the future, to protect his son.
That sense of duty is huge for him, and you can see it in how he leads, especially after M-Day.
Oh, totally. When so many mutants lost their powers, it was a turning point for him.
Yeah, the wiki really emphasizes that. He gets more extreme, more willing to make, let's just say, tough decisions if it means ensuring the survival of mutant kind.
It's like everything gets dialed up to 11, you know?
Absolutely.
It's like his whole thing, that need for control, becomes his whole world. Because the decimation of mutant kind, it pushes him to a place where, in his mind, he's the only one who can save them.
Hence X-Force.
Right, exactly. Like, he forms this Black Ops team and starts making some, well, let's just say, morally ambiguous choices.
Putting it lightly, huh?
Yeah.
We talk about the assassinations. Using a modified version of the legacy virus against the Skrulls during Secret Invasion. Because, yikes.
Yeah, not exactly squeaky clean tactics. And it really begs the question, you know, both for Cyclops and for us having this conversation, where's the line?
Right, where does it cross from doing what needs to be done to, whoa, dude, too far?
Exactly. Like, when does protecting your people, fighting for their survival, justify crossing certain moral boundaries?
Is he even a hero at that point? Or is it more complicated than that?
Way more complicated. Something that haunts him, I think, even to his death. And speaking of...
Don't even get me started on the whole dying and coming back thing.
Right. Classic comic book trope.
But for real, his final death, the one from the Terrigen Mists, the whole thing with the Inhumans, those clouds that give them powers but are toxic to mutants. Ugh, that one's rough.
It's tragic, for sure. Especially because of Emma Frost. I mean, she really goes there with the whole telepathy thing. Creates this whole psychic projection of Cyclops attacking the Inhumans.
So even in death, he's painted as the villain.
It's brutal, and it's like everything he feared. Losing control, being seen as a monster, it all comes true even though he's gone.
Talk about adding insult to injury.
Seriously. It really makes you think about how much of his story was shaped by forces outside of his control.
Right. The trauma being manipulated by Sinister and Emma, even the burden of his own powers, it's almost like he's always reacting.
Totally. Trying to force order on a world that's determined to stay chaotic.
So where does that leave us? I mean, was Cyclops a hero, a villain, or what? Something in between.
Honestly, I think it's way more nuanced than any one label.
Like with most things in life, right?
Totally. He was deeply flawed, that's for sure, but also capable of incredible courage. He loved fiercely, even if he wasn't always great at showing it.
Oh yeah, the guy was all bottled up.
Right, and he was so haunted by his past. It's that complexity that makes him such a great character, though, because he forces us to confront these really uncomfortable questions about power, responsibility, the choices we make when the stakes are impossibly high.
There are no easy answers with Cyclops.
Exactly. And that's what makes him so fascinating.
So we covered a ton of ground, right? From traumatic childhood to the love life, that constant need for control.
Oh, and don't forget all the philosophical questions, like what lengths are justified when it comes to survival? When does a hero go too far? What even defines a hero in the first place?
Heavy stuff.
Right. But that's the good stuff.
It is, because it makes you think, right?
Absolutely. And that's what we want, more than anything.
To spark those conversations, make you question what you thought you knew, see things from a different angle.
Yeah, with Cyclops, there's always something more to uncover.
Oh yeah. The Marvel Fandom Wiki is just the tip of the iceberg. His story goes so many places, different teams, events, timelines. The list goes on.
So much good material out there. But for now, we want to hear from you. What do you think about Cyclops?
Hero, villain, something in between. What parts of his story stood out?
Let us know. Hit us up in the comments. We love hearing from you.
And hey, if you enjoyed this deep dive into all things Cyclops,
make sure you're subscribed so you don't miss out on the next one.
We'll be back soon with another deep dive into a fascinating character. Until then, keep exploring, keep asking those questions.
And keep on diving deep.